Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Cadisen C8189G Chronograph. This watch is available on featured store on AliExpress. There is an AliExpress sale on the 23rd of August until the 27th of August inclusive, and the price of this watch on featured store will be discounted during the sale to only $62, so an ideal time to purchase the piece. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the other items one gets with the piece. So the watch comes in a navy blue cardboard watch box, which is protected by this white cardboard outer sleeve, which one removes. This is the watch box itself. Now, bearing in mind that this is a low tier price point piece at only $62, I think it's perfectly acceptable for Cadisen to be using a cardboard watch box. There's a piece of foam, and the watch sits inside a foam cutout panel as one would expect, and there's also a cutout for the push pin tool for resizing the bracelet. So with regards to the other items, this is the warranty card which comes with the watch. This is the owner's instruction manual booklet, and although basic, it does suffice in detailing the operation of the movement used, which is the Seiko VK63 Mecha Quartz. This is the microfiber polishing cloth, which is branded with Cadisen. I always think it's a nice touch, irrespective of the price point of a piece, to get a branded microfiber polishing cloth with the watch. And lastly, this is the knurled bracelet push pin resizing tool. So it's nice to see this included, and it makes resizing the bracelet by removing the links using the push pin tool easy, so it's good to have that included. So with regards to the specification of the piece, this is the Cadisen C8189G Chronograph. It's available in 3 dial colour options, black, white and blue respectively. This is the white version, and this is my personal favourite of those 3 colour options. I've previously reviewed the black dial version, so please feel free to check out that review if you haven't already seen it. With regards to the dimensions, it's a 42mm case diameter. It is a 48.8mm lug-to-lug measurement. It has a thickness of 12mm, and it has a lug width of 20mm. Now that is the internal lug width, because as you can see, the bracelet is integrated to the head of the piece. The actual exterior dimensions of the integrated bracelet at the widest point are 27mm, and the integrated bracelet tapers from 27mm down to 18mm at the 2-button push deployment clasp. As you can see, the last link in the bracelet over the 2-button push deployment is signed with Cadisen engraved to a high standard, so that makes it easy to find where the 2-button push triggers are for the deployment, and it's a nice detail. So 27mm down to 18, it's a rather large wide bracelet, but it does balance the 42mm head of the piece very well. As you can see, it's clearly an homage to the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Chronograph, and it does that very well because it has very similar proportions at 42mm by 48.8mm lug to lug. Flat sapphire crystal, which is very aesthetically pleasing, but the negative is there is no AR coating on the underside, and as you can see, the silver applied indices and the baton hands are highly reflective. Also, although the dial is white, it's actually got a metallic finish to it, and in some light it even looks silver. Now it is aesthetically pleasing because it is textured. Often collectors refer to this style of textured dial as being a waffle dial, but the correct name for this style of dial is Grand Tapisserie. The Grand Tapisserie dial was invented by Audemars Piguet for the Royal Oak, and as this is an homage to the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Chronograph, it does an excellent job of replicating the Grand Tapisserie style of dial, which, as I've discussed, is also sometimes referred to as the waffle dial. Very well executed. The black subdials contrast very well with the textured Grand Tapisserie dial, and I think they've made the correct decision by citing the date complication in between the 4 and 5 o'clock indices on the dial. The white date wheel with black Arabic numerals is clearly legible despite the lack of AR coating on the underside of the sapphire crystal. So good symmetry to the dial. I like the layout of the 3 subdials, and I also like the date complication between 4 and 5 o'clock. Easy to read the time, easy to read the date, so very functional daily wear piece. Now with regards to the crown, it's a screw down crown, and it has a hexagonal formation like a nut, which is as per the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Chronograph, which this is an homage to. Also has pushers Now the pushers aren't screwed down, but they do have similar 6-sided hexagon nuts, and they do look very aesthetically pleasing, although the chrome dome caps aren't signed, only the screw down stainless steel crown is signed. Now the interesting feature of this watch is it is entirely made from 304 grade stainless steel. Usually watches are made from 316L grade stainless steel, so I'll explain what the difference is between 304L grade and 316L grade respectively. 304 grade is 18% chromium plus 8% nickel. 316L grade is 16% chromium plus 10% nickel plus 2% molybdenum. So the only real difference between 304 grade and 316L is the 316L also has 2% molybdenum. Now visually one cannot tell them apart. The luster of 304L looks exactly the same as the luster to 316L grade stainless steel. When they're brushed into a satin finish, you could mistake this for 316L grade stainless steel. The only real property, the only real advantage 304 grade has over 316L is that it is more resistant to sulfuric acid. Now, having said that, 316L grade stainless steel is more resistant to salt erosion. So really, you're not going to be exposing the watch to sulfuric acid, and you're not going to be exposing the watch to salt, because unless you go diving with the watch, which is highly unlikely, it's not going to be an issue. But nonetheless, 304 grade visually is the same as 316L grade, despite the lack of the 2% molybdenum. So I just thought I would clarify the difference between the two, because it's very unusual to see a watch made from 304 grade. The luster is very nice, as you can see, and Cadisen deserve full credit because they have done an outstanding job for the brushed satin finish to the top side, underside and flanks of the bracelet, which is integrated, and also the quality of the finishing to the bezel and the flanks of the case is done to a high standard. Now bear in mind that this is only $62 in the sale. The quality of the finishing really is the kind of finishing one would expect to see on a case of a higher tier piece. And I really think they deserve credit because it's only $62. The quality of the mirror polishing is absolutely flawless on the case, and I like the large angular bevels which are machined on the edges of the case. So it does an excellent job of being an homage to the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak chronograph. So let's test the crown action. Screw down crown, which provides an effective hermetic seal to 100 meters. So Seiko VK63 Mecha Quartz, which is a reliable, well-proven, accurate Mecha Quartz movement made in Japan. The same movement is used in the Pagani design PD1664 and PD1644, which are Daytona homages, so you'll be familiar with that. Now, in the first click position, it is the quick set date complication setting position. If you look closely at the date complication, you'll see the date wheel advancing using the quick set complication, so that works perfectly. Pulling it out to the final click position is the time setting position. Absolutely silky smooth. I really like the Seiko VK63 Mecha Quartz. It's a reliable, well proven Mecha Quartz movement, and it's also incredibly accurate. The stated accuracy is plus or minus 20 seconds per month. Now I want you to consider that that's not plus or minus 20 seconds per day. Plus or minus 20 seconds per month. That is better accuracy than plus or minus 1 second per day, which is incredible. 3-year battery life if based upon you using the chronograph for 60 minutes per day. But in reality, you're not going to be using the chronograph complication for anything like 60 minutes per day. So if you don't use it for 60 minutes per day, you can significantly extend this 3-year battery life to 5 years, for example, and that is very impressive. So it's a very good movement, very reliable, and a credit to Cadisen because they could have used a less expensive Mecha Quartz movement made by Sunon, for example, in China, which is the other popular choice. But they've chosen to use the more expensive option, which is the Seiko VK63 made in Japan. In terms of crown execution, the crown unscrews with minimal resistance and it also screws back down with minimal resistance. Very good interface between the internal thread of the solid stainless steel crown and the external thread of the crown tube, and I'm absolutely confident in this having an effective hermetic seal to 100 meters, as does the screw down solid stainless steel case back. Cadisen deserve full credit because The quality of the finishing on the screw down stainless steel caseback is outstanding, bearing in mind of the price point of the piece. Mirror polish to the circumference, and we have a matte bead blasted effect to the centre section, and mirror polished embossing to the Cadisen logo, and we've also got the specification embossed as well. It's very well finished, and it's a refreshing change, because often at this price point one will see cost-cutting measures and poor quality engraving or embossing or finishing on the screw down caseback. It's low profile thanks to it using the Mecha Quartz VK63 rather than an automatic movement, and I really like it. It's very well finished. So let's test the chronograph complication. The top pusher activates the chronograph. Good firm resistance to the pusher. One has to give it a good hard push, but I like that. I like the solid feeling of the spring-loaded action. And as you can see, the chronograph second hand begins to sweep around the dial smoothly. Pressing the top pusher again stops the chronograph complication, and pressing the lower pusher activates the flyback complication, and that will make the flyback second hand fly back to the double indices at 12 o'clock. And as you can see, the flyback complication works perfectly. The alignment of the chronograph second hand is perfect. So the Seiko VK63 is a very good choice. I like the plus or minus 20 seconds per day accuracy. I like the 3-year battery life, which can be extended to 5 years if you don't use the chronograph for 60 minutes per day, as I've discussed. So I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now, I haven't sized the bracelet. I've simply taken the watch out of the watch box, and I'm pleased to report that it fits my 8-inch wrist with no difficulty whatsoever. I can in fact easily slide an index finger underneath the bracelet and clasp at all times, so this will fit up to an 8.5-inch wrist with no problems whatsoever. Now, the piece is large. It does have wrist presence at 42mm. That's something to bear in mind. If you're a collector with a 6 to 7-inch wrist, you may find the 42mm head of the piece with the integrated bracelet, and bear in mind it is wide at 27mm at its widest point, tapering down to 18 at the 2-button push deployment. It's a large piece, it wears with wrist presence, and it also wears with heft. 185 grams with all the links in the integrated bracelet. Now, I have seen this watch worn on rubber straps, and that will significantly reduce the heft to below 150 grams, which I consider to be more comfortable. As you'll know from my previous reviews, I consider 150 grams to be the sweet spot. So if you're a collector with a smaller wrist, but you do like watches with wrist presence of 42mm, consider changing the integrated bracelet for a 20mm rubber strap. If you're a collector like myself with a larger wrist of 7 to 8 inches, you will enjoy the wrist presence of 42mm, and you will also enjoy the 185 grams of heft. So large piece, and it's relatively low profile because it's only 12mm thick due to the flat sapphire crystal and flat low profile screw down stainless steel caseback. So it's a very aesthetically pleasing piece. It does a very good job of being an homage to the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak chronograph. The only real negative is the lack of AR coating on the underside of the sapphire crystal, because as you can see it is a highly reflective piece. There is a lot of glare, and the silver applied indices and baton style hands are very reflective. But comfortable piece to wear, and it's actually surprisingly comfortable for a 42mm that weighs 185 grams. I actually like the feeling of it. It feels very balanced. It does have a wide bracelet at 27mm down to 18, but the wide bracelet does balance the 42mm head of the piece very well. The 2-button push deployment clasp is very well finished, surprisingly well for a piece that costs only $62. Good firm resistance to the 2-button push triggers, they're nicely spring loaded. A nice mirror polishing to the top side, underside and flank, so it is a well executed, solid stainless steel deployment clasp. Nice positive click to the left hand and right hand portions. It's not going to accidentally pop undone. And I like the engraving of Cadisen to sign the last link over the deployment clasp. So let's do a Lume test, and we'll see how the Lume performs when it's charged up to its absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to its absolute peak. Right, so that's now fully charged, and I would say that the Lume is acceptable. It clearly uses C3 Luminova rather than C3 Super Luminova, but bear in mind the price point of this piece, $62, one has to expect some cost-cutting measures, and the use of C3 Luminova rather than C3 Super Luminova is a clear cost-cutting measure. Now, the baton hands and also the applied indices don't allow for a large area of plot of lume to be applied, so one can be forgiving to Cadisen for not applying several layers of luminova and also larger plots. So I think the lume is performing okay. It's glowing to a reasonable standard, and it's also glowing for a reasonable length of time. Yes, there is room for improvement. It would be better if it was C3 superluminova, but of course that would inevitably mean an increase in production costs and therefore an increase in the retail costs. So in order to keep the price viable at $62 retail, yes, it is acceptable to have cost-cutting measures like this. The lume is okay performance. So lastly, I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch should meet two criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the price point. At $62 for an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Chronograph Homage, this cannot be beaten. It really is outstanding. The quality of the case finishing throughout and the bracelet finishing throughout is very impressive. I'm actually pleasantly surprised by it. Lovely luster to the 304 grade stainless steel, and there are no defects, no sharp edges whatsoever, and they have done an outstanding job on the brushed satin finishing and also the mirror polishing to the bezel and also the bevels to the case. It really is very well finished throughout, including the screw down exhibition case back as I've shown you. So the case finishing, the build quality, the quality control is all good. The screw down crown works perfectly. The Seiko VK63 Mecha Quartz movement works as one would expect, and it is a reliable, well proven movement. It is the correct choice. I really like the use of the VK63 rather than the cheaper alternative, which is the Sunon. So overall, I think it is an outstanding piece. Now, the lume could do with improving, and also it would be improved if it had AR coating on the underside of the sapphire crystal. So they are the two main negatives. Being critical, one could also say it should have screw pins in the bracelet rather than push pins. Push pins are obviously a cost-cutting measure, but however, it's subjective. Some collectors like push pins because they make resizing the bracelets easy. Personally, I prefer screw pins, but of course one has to expect some cost-cutting measures, such as the use of luminova, the lack of the AR coating, and the use of push pins. I think for $62, it really is an outstanding value proposition. So I'm going to declare it a champagne watch for lemonade money. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Cadisen C8189G Chronograph. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you very much.